We're in the middle of a sub-battle here this week on Dallas Mavericks Today. The Miami Heat report took us on. F those frauds. Tight battle so far. They've picked up 22 new subscribers. We've picked up 20. Coop. We'll never forget 06.
Never.
We got to hand them one here in 2023.
We may have lost the battle, but we will win the war. We cannot lose to those cheating frauds. So please subscribe to the channel right now before we get into today's Mavericks rumors.
He's Jeffrey Cooperstein. I am Harrison Graham. Have some Mavs rumors to catch you guys up on here on a Tuesday. Jaylen Noel, who maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't, one of the top free agents remaining, I would say, is reportedly drawing some interest from the Dallas Mavericks. According to reports, he is on their radar. Coop, we'll give some thoughts here in a second, but Darren Wolfson of the Scoop podcast had this to say about Noel and his prior team, Minnesota Timberwolves. He says, no, he's not coming back to the Wolves. There's a mutual understanding that, hey, time for Jalen to move on, but here's a new team in on Jalen Noel, the Dallas Mavericks. They need to create some roster flexibility. They are looking into doing some stuff, is the word, and it may not come to fruition, but Jalen Noel is on Dallas's radar. The Noel camp is still awaiting finality on the Damian Lillard situation. So, Coop, he might be in that category of players that wants to see how the Dame Lillard dominoes fall because, you know, maybe a team like the Heat could promise him a bigger role if they lose some key role players. But, look, Jalen Noel is an athletic player. He's not a great jump shooter, but an intriguing talent who averaged 11 points per game last year.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised when I went and looked at his stats that he's a pretty consistent scorer. He's averaged over 9 points a game in 2 out of his 4 years in the NBA, but I've liked what he's brought, especially on the defensive end of Minnesota.
Yep.
I remember there was a game earlier this year when I believe Luka was sitting and they were in Minnesota. Noel kind of just had his way with the Mavs, and it's always those types of players that stick in the back of my mind. So I've always had Noel sort of on my radar, and if you take a look at his stats, the three-point shooting isn't great, but in 21-22, he did shoot 39% from the field.
Yeah, the way I look at it, because obviously the volume went up last year and the percentage went way down, can you meet me in the middle, right? 39.4%, 29% last year. Can you be a 34, 35% guy? That's not great, but like if you're adequate enough where like defenders at least have to respect that you're capable of hitting that shot, then I'm good with that because this would be a vet minimum type of player, I believe. I mean, maybe on the biannual, but I think the Mavs want to save that at this point in time.
But they also could go the route of just giving him a little more money into the mid-level exception.
Yeah, they still have what, probably 3 or 4 million.
I think
left
they have
in
like
there?
4-ish million left. So if they wanted to give him some more money, they could do that.
Yeah, if they want to outbid another team, give him like a 1-year, $4 million deal, they could do that. But I mean, look, if he's a player that can come off your bench, be like your third or fourth bench guard behind, Hardaway and Seth Curry along with Jaden Hardy. The thing about the bench unit right now, Coop, that's interesting to me is you've got some good pieces in Hardaway, Curry, and in Hardy, but none of those guys are like defensive stoppers. Jaylen Noel is a guy, or Noel is a guy who may not be an assassin defensively, but he gives you more athleticism and capability on that side of the ball, and I think that could be intriguing for this team.
Yeah, he gives you a different kind of profile off the bench for sure, and I kind of disagreed with what he said in his report where he said that the Mavs would need to create some roster flexibility. I think they kind of already have it already. I think they have a spot open that they can just use on him.
They have a spot open. They're going to cut McGee.
Exactly. So there's definitely easy avenues to get Noel on this roster. Now, when you take a look at the shooting guards, I listed Kyrie Irving on here because he's going to play the two. I know he's not a shooting guard, but for all intents and purposes, he's going to be there. And then you have Seth Curry in addition to Tim Hardaway and Jaden Hardy. The thing that would give me pause about signing Noel would this stunt Jaden Hardy's growth because it would take minutes away from him with that spot?
Yeah, I think Hardy entering the season would like start higher up in the pecking order than Noel, but what it does allow is, say Hardy isn't quite ready for a bigger role. Well, a guy like Noel has been a fairly regular rotation guy for the last couple of years, so you at least feel comfortable plugging him in there if you need to. And again, it gives you a different look, like depending on who you're playing. Like, look, we all love Seth Curry and that contract's awesome, but there's going to be certain matchups where he has to play less because he's an undersized two that doesn't play defense. A guy like Noel, 6'4", fairly long, he can guard 2s and 3s. He might play more against certain teams. So I like that flexibility. I also like the fact that I think we all think Tim Hardaway could still get dealt at some point. So if he were to get dealt, Hardaway has that 2-3 flexibility. Noel could eat some of those minutes at small ball 3 if you need him to as well. So, again, you're talking about the end of the roster at this point. Like, I think he's a better overall player than Dante Exum, who hasn't been in the NBA
Absolutely
for years. So, like, if you're willing to sign him, if you can get Noel at $4 million or less, like, I don't see why you wouldn't consider doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an intriguing prospect. I'm not going to sit here and say my level of interest is 100 and the Mavs absolutely have to go get him. I'm probably around a 70-ish, though. I think it would be nice to add him to the roster in the stable of guards / forwards that the Mavs already have.
Yeah, let us know what you guys' interest is. Scale of 1 to 100, 1 being not interested at all, 100 being very interested. I think at this stage in free agency, Coop, where things have slowed down, the Mavs, for the most part, if they're going to make another big move, it's going to be via trade. Like, you're talking about, like, a 10th, 11th guy in the rotation. Like, and I think for someone in that role, you could do a lot worse than Jalen Noel.
For sure.
He's a guy that's actually played for a decent Minnesota team.
And while he may not play a whole bunch in the grand scheme of things, those guys aren't unimportant. You need to have those guys that are ready to step in and play at a moment's notice.
And think about this. Theo Pinson, look, we love the guy. Great
love
culture
Theo.
fit. But, like, on nights when you need to go deeper into your bench, load management, injuries, whatever, you'd rather have guys that can actually
You just can't.
That's nothing against Theo Pinson.
And it's nothing against Boban either, but those were the guys at the end of the Mavs bench over the last couple of years, and they cannot play.
Yeah, let us know. Scale of 1 to 100. Another player that I talked about a little bit last week, but Coop, you were actually out. There was a report that Rudy Gay, the report that I discussed was him actually getting cut, and then since then, Hoop site Michael Scotto linked the Mavericks as a potential fit for Rudy Gay. Curious what your thoughts are, then I'll kind of double down on mine from last week.
Yeah, I like Rudy Gay as a player. He's obviously not what he once was. When you take a look at his stats, he's kind of declined over the last 4 years. But I still think he can bring a veteran presence to this locker room. I'm not sure. I think if I was picking between Jaylen Noel and Rudy Gay, I'd probably take Noel. But Rudy Gay, you could do a lot worse than him as well. He can still defend a little bit. He's more of a 3-4 versus where Noel is more of a 2-3. So I don't hate the fit, but this would definitely be a veteran minimum signing. I'm not expecting him to provide big things for the Mavs if they were to sign him, but it's something that I wouldn't hate.
Yeah, I think Rudy Gay would be less likely to crack a rotation here than Jaylen Noel, although the 3-4 spot is probably a bigger need, quote-unquote, but he fell off pretty dramatically last year. I mean, he easily had the worst year of his career, but you don't stick around for 17 years by accident. I mean, he's a 6'8 wing who is long and physical on the defensive end. He's always been a good scorer. Again, the splits last year weren't good.
He was a bucket getter back in the day, man. Obviously, he's declining because of age, but I really do like the player. I just don't know if he has anything to give the Mavs at this point.
You look at the advanced metrics last year. I mean, it's just well below average, but
the catch and shoot 3-point is abysmal.
Yeah, it's bad, and that's kind of how I look at it too. Like, if you're going to sign a guy like this, I don't think you can have like a real playing role for him. Like, I would view this as like Andre Iguodala with the Warriors last year. Like,
Udonis Haslem.
Yeah,
he's just
not
the
to
OG.
that level. Like, I think if he had to play here and there, he can still hold his own a bit, but he's never going to be in the regular part of the rotation. Like, he'll play on load management in garbage time.
Exactly.
He's providing another vet voice in the locker room. That's kind of what his role would be.
And everyone says that around the NBA that Rudy Gay is a great teammate and he's a guy that will help anyone who asks for it. And I think that's someone that the Mavs could use because when you look at the Mavs roster, they don't really have that veteran leader. You think of Kyrie Irving as that guy, and from all indications, he has been that guy in his short time with the Mavs. But outside of him, you have Richaun Holmes, you have Tim Hardaway, you have Maxi Kleber, who's now a veteran because he's 30.
Yeah.
I mean, so they need more guys who have leadership qualities in the locker room.
And you think of you just brought in Grant Williams, you're hoping he takes another step. Could a Rudy Gay help him do that? There's similarities in their games, positions, I would say. He's not going to be an ISO scorer that Rudy Gay was, of course, but could he help Grant Williams take another step? Could he help him add a couple of isolation moves to his offensive arsenal? I do think there's value in that. So it's kind of twofold, right? I think Noel gives you more on the court, but Rudy Gay might give you more in the locker room. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair to say. And at this point, you just kind of have to balance which one's more important to you. Do you feel like you have the players ready to go out there and compete every single night? Or do you feel like you need more overall talent? And that's kind of the decision the Mavs would have to make if they were choosing between these two guys.
Yeah, and look, technically they could sign both. If
they could, if they wanted to.
I mean, that would fill out your 15-man roster. I tend to think the Mavs are going to keep one roster spot open for now.
And another quick note as well, McKinley Wright did sign over in Europe. So the Mavs
they have a two-way spot.
They do have a two-way spot available now.
You think one of the Summer League guys, Jelly Walker maybe?
Yeah, I could see one of the Summer League guys, maybe a guy they bring into training camp who wasn't on that Summer League roster, but they have a spot open and up for grabs for sure.
I still wonder, too, as you guys get your votes in, type S for sign, P for pass when it comes to Rudy Gay. Like, I still wonder if Lawson gets promoted.
I kind of think that's the route that they're going to go. I think Lawson has shown enough to where he might get promoted to the active roster, which would give them another two-way spot to use as well. I just don't think that using the two-way spot on three guards is something that they want to do. So they probably want to get another wing, maybe a big in there as well.
Maybe there's a wing out there that they could bring in. Let us know again, S for sign, P for pass, in terms of would you like to bring in Rudy Gay. All right, Coop, we're going to sign off here. Some Clint Capella trade rumors have surfaced once again. We're going to explore that in our next episode, so be sure to subscribe and turn on that notification
bell. We cannot
bell.
lose to the Miami Heat.
Yes. Can't lose to the Heat in that sub battle. So let's get that done this week. He's Coop. I'm Harry. We'll see you next time.